All right, hello. Thank you all for coming out this evening. My name is Alex Kowalchuk, AK4AM, and basically, it's a very nuanced presentation I'm going to be doing this evening. It's mobile radio installations, and I'm starting off from the basics of, well, new ham, trying to figure things out, or I'm going also to a degree of how to improve your current mobile setup. So there's a few different angles. I'm kind of being kind of general. There's lots of rabbit holes we can go down, but I just try to really keep this presentation kind of general to the degree of this is the idea of which best practices is something I try to promote. So like most things in the hobby, your mileage can vary on lots of degrees of making things as best they can be, but it's the general gist of it here. So real quick introduction. Once again, Alex, AK4AM. I've been employed by local Chevy dealerships for the past. Is this better? Worse? Okay, very good now. Okay, all right. Hello. I felt like that was weird. Enough of that. Anyways, so yeah, I've been in the automotive business for about 10 years. Started working at Nash Chevrolet here in Lawrenceville. Moved down to Jim Ellis, Atlanta, Chevy Atlanta in Atlanta, and then moved with my boss up to Rick Hendrick Chevy here over in Buford. So I didn't change jobs so much. I just followed my boss, so it was pretty cool. Anyways, great group of guys I work with and everything, and really I've seen the transition from what we had 10 years ago with vehicles, which are just basic, and things had CAN buses, and things were just simple, to now we have LAN, local area networks inside vehicles, and now we have all kinds of things now that it's just, it honestly makes, as a technician, makes my eyes just gloss over and everything, and it's one of those things that we're just, we're trying to do what the manufacturers want us to do, and how to fix the cars the best way, and all these things. So there seems to be a lot of, I guess, what's the word? A little apprehensiveness to work on your car, it seems like, especially nowadays. And doing something as simple as putting a radio in a car, which 20 years ago, you just put the power to the battery and run the antenna and all these things. Nowadays, you could be, hooking up across a sensor and drilling into a, wiring harness and all these things. So there's some aspects there that you definitely want to just be cautious with. So anyways, I also have ASU certifications in most of my, I'm not fully certified yet, but it's a process. And anyways, and then once again, just trying to outline the presentation here, and just trying to help anybody out at any degree. And with that, simple thing is, why do you want to go mobile? Lots of aspects to that. I think the most people find I guess personally, I think it was a long time until I actually installed a radio in my vehicle. I drove a Pontiac Coupe for a long time, and I really didn't have a good area for the antenna, and didn't have a good area for the radio, and so I would do the option of just put it in the HT, in the car and that kind of stuff. But now that I've installed a radio in my truck, and I find it the best in commuting to work, back and forth to work. And then, of course, when you're traveling, that's great. Keep it on 5.2 and just hear and talk to anybody that you happen to be passing by. But a great thing there, too, is also having the ability, in a backup situation, your mobile can be a great, powered source of radio. And also, the other degree of it, at the last option there, if you live in a HOA or you're in an apartment and you just don't have any other easy way to get on the air, just putting a radio in your vehicle is a great option there too. So lots of aspects to it overall. Planning is the main thing with this project. And if you're like me, I like to plan and buy a radio or buy a kit for the power and here and there, and then all of a sudden one day just do it all at one shot. But that you can take your time. It's a step-by-step process. Most of us, I think, also like to work in that degree too. The one big thing I find that people are apprehensive about is how do I do this and how do I do that, and as far as trim work and how the radio might be fixed or Velcroed. Even I've seen sometimes, but definitely having a little more of an approach to making it secure to the vehicle, I think, is a good option for one thing. The antenna selection there, I mean, whatever you're doing as far as a dual band antenna or a Tar Heel HF antenna, there's lots of options within that. But I think the one thing folks should just keep it simple. And the one thing there, the power requirements. Most radios are dual band radios, 15 amps draw. You can kind of just you don't have to use the big old gnarly stuff that comes with it. You can go smaller if you wanted to, because most of that's, I think, 12 gauge or sometimes even 10 gauge. And on that note, real quick, at the bottom, maybe in the bottom left of the screen there, just 14 gauge or 12 gauge in that range. That's really all you need. Sometimes the manufacturers come with that big gnarly 10 gauge stuff for a dual band radio, which it's unless you're what's that, 70, 80 watts at 12 volts. So regardless, on that note, what's used for power is the key thing. Kind of a crazy little chart here. I got this from a boat manufacturing, a boat parts manufacturing website. Basically the top part here where it's 5. I'm going to come around here. 5 and 10, 15 amps. Really, in this general gauge of wiring, we're just going to be in this smaller area. There's not really much need to go, big power in your vehicle. That's going to cause a lot of RFI and things you don't really, unless you really want to, and you know what you're doing. But again, this is a general presentation here, keeping it kind of just easy for you and all the things around you. 14 gauge wires, fine. So on that note, we'll be using zip cord most times. It's a really fun little product. It comes multiple lengths, gauges, and the reason it's called zip cord is you can pull it apart and zip it, unzip it, and it's very flexible. And that's the most stuff I see. A lot of guys can do single harness runs and that kind of stuff. I even personally do a kind of more unorthodox style of pulling power off a fuse block and then grounding it to the body. It's power and ground. I don't really use much zip cord in my personal installation, but anyways, general gist of radios here. Most of the manufacturers here have nice size radios. Nowadays, they typical footprint is actually quite small than what you would imagine even 15 years ago. I have an FTM 200 out in the truck, and it's a Yaesu dual band with system fusion. That thing is only half the size of an old VHS tape. I mean, it's really small, but that's an option there for most folks there. Great starting point. I've seen folks even do HF mobile to the degree of like the 891's a good option there. ICOM 705. I've even seen folks put 7300s and 991s and the big HF radios. I don't quite know how you can do that, but hey, to each their own on that note. But and starting off, even an HT with an external antenna is a great starting option. You'll probably need a coax adapter there that converts the socket, SO239 to a mini. They call it a mini UHF. Great option starting off. Just to get the antenna outside the vehicle is a great little thing there. And if you're close and you know where the repeaters are, and you're close, it really is kind of the best thing starting off. Although you can do, Faraday cage mobile, just HT in the hand driving around, and that's fine, but you'll be quickly told that you're just not getting into the machine much, and, put the antenna outside. Real quick little gist here of the types of antennas. Most people that do a mobile VHF, UHF do a dual band antenna. You can do a mono band if you want to go, 440 and 2 meters or 220 or whatever the case might be. But most folks gravitate towards a dual band antenna. Mag mounts, actually I've come to learn recently with a gentleman here who has an aluminum body vehicle that's actually kind of not so easily said or easily promoted nowadays. I personally don't like them for long-term use. They typically eat into the clear coat and etch into the paint, and then may as well just at that point get the old drill bits out, So. And then also with that note, you have to figure with your antenna where it's going to be and where's your coax going to terminate on each end. So on that note, how do we do this? Where do you start? Where's anything? Yes.
Alex, can you repeat the question for the recording?
Yes. It was more of the observation of metallic, metal flake paint what was happening? Was it like oxidizing or was it just
I think what it was doing instead was there had to have been some ferrous material in that metal, and it was actually realigning it.
Interesting.
So it was definitely messing up the paint. So
yeah.
It wasn't just the act of the Magma, because I've had them on other cars before that had just a flat, just a regular paint job, and I never had any problems with them because you have a big enough one that it's just not going to do it. But this particular one, it is kind of a metallic appearance to it, and it actually, the metallization in the paint was messed up because of the mag mount.
Yeah. So they're great for temporary use, or you just want to try some things out. But long-term use of mag mount probably shouldn't be utilized forever. But that's the whole deal there. Yeah, with paint nowadays too, most new vehicles aren't using any lacquers. It's actually a water-based paint. That the industry uses nowadays, and so again, easily scratched, very thin. It's eco-friendly, they say. I don't know, but anyways, planning. Yes, sir. Yeah, right behind you, the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus what you would do. So, does the military and the police have some antennas that they can use that a civilian can't get?
Well, it's mainly just wavelength that they're transmitting on. Most of the and Dave, if you want to echo on that one, it's mainly wavelength.
700, 800 megahertz on those little stubbies you see on the police cars, and Motorola installs those with a NMO mount through the roof, just like Alex does for any other antenna on that. So there you go. Same thing.
And most of the thank you, Dave. And most of the little stubbies there, they're even the shorter ones you'll see. They're actually a quarter wave. They're not even a half wave antenna. They just want to make it as small, low profile as possible. Actually, today, right now, I have a Georgia Department of Transportation Tahoe, basically a state police officer Tahoe in the shop right now. And they have their Motorola radio, and they have it's a half wavelength, 800 megahertz. It's actually a taller antenna. And I was just looking at it. It's a Laird brand, and I was like, thought that was interesting. Typically, they use little stubbies there. Yes, sir. Well, it all depends. 5/8 wave has the beauty of not having to be reliant on a ground or be grounded for the degree of its 5/8 of the wave going up. And it's not any better or worse. It's good if you can't get an easy ground for that antenna. If you're mounting it on a luggage rack or something like that. But typically, it's going to be a half wave or a 5/8 wave you'll put on mobiles most of. Yeah, I mean, either way. But yeah, if you're doing something like that, yeah, it really is a matter of preference of what you want to do. I don't find much. I don't know. It's a lot of nuance within the wavelength size of the antenna. I honestly just go for size at that point. If you want higher profile or less, it's kind of the preference on that note. Yes, sir.
Of course, there are some cars you got to be careful of that might not have a metal roof, or
Right.
that may have a lot of fiberglass in them, let's say. But the other thing, to look at is how the size of an antenna. What they call gain is really your antenna radiates like a donut, and when you have a higher gain antenna, it squishes the donut so that it's sort of like a balloon. It's pushing out more in a smaller elevation angle. Sometimes a lower gain antenna, like a quarter wave, which has a more rounded radiation pattern, if you don't have a pure line of sight, it may scoot over the tree or over the building a little better sometimes. So it all varies where you are, and you're not always going to see the repeater from where you are.
It's very true. So a lot of the antenna sizing, which I'm going to get to here in a little bit on the presentation, it's just a very, very general preference. I find if you're wanting to keep a lower profile, quarter wave antenna will just do just fine. But most folks, go with a half wave dual band or a 5/8 wave, just for the mere fact that it just is kind of the best of both worlds and preferential. Basic thing, of course, on the with your vehicle is where's your battery? Nowadays, the batteries are hidden almost, especially with more modern vehicles. They're sometimes in the trunk now. They're buried in your engine bay. A lot of folks don't know where the batteries are. That's a good first starting point there. And I find, that's kind of a key thing there. And there's fuse blocks on the batteries now, typically body positive fuse blocks. So they're more complicated than ever now, really, to work on. But that's the key thing there is where is your battery? And have you even seen them in the rear floorboard? Yes, Dave.
Just an option. I've seen one or two hams not use an electrical connection to the vehicle's battery, instead have a battery in the vehicle compartment with them,
Right.
and are just running with that separate battery, and therefore having really short electrical connection. Just an option.
That's an option. And then I guess you'd take the battery out and charge it with the jumper cables or something. So, yeah, Kevin. Right.
Actually, that's exactly what I do with mine. I've got a sealed lead acid battery for like a computer power supply, backup battery type thing.
Yeah.
And they're cheap. And I've got it in my trunk. And I've also run from my cigarette lighter back to that to charge it up. But I also have a Schottky diode in series with it, because if you have 12 volts going back to your cigarette lighter, your radio doesn't shut off.
Right.
So this way, it keeps your battery from being drained, your SLA battery, and at the same time, the Schottky only has a 0.3 volt drop. So it always stays charged up, and I've had that same battery in my car for 2 years. I don't go through the firewall. It just goes easily into the trunk.
Yep.
Right next to the radio, I've got a real short connection.
That's great. That's yeah.
And when that battery goes soft, guess what? New one. And SLA batteries can handle the heat, unlike lithium ion.
Right, and they're a little bit cheaper too. A little
Real
cheaper.
cheap. $13.
Right. Well, that's a yeah. Modern vehicles, you can't really do much underneath the dashboard or the instrument panel. It's just there is indeed lots of modules under there, and it's not easy as it used to be. Yes. I typically find, nowadays, this has been the case for about the past 8-10 years now almost, your radio in your vehicle, the display is a display. The radio is actually a module tucked under the glove box somewhere or off to the side, and they're just linked with a harness. And a lot of things go through that radio, more than just your broadcast radio, and a lot of the cars, what they call infotainment now, is monitored through the radio module itself. So again, lots of changes from how it was 20, 30 years ago. And to that point, on the idea of going through the firewall is a more traditional, purist way to do it, but there's other options you can do too. But just for the purpose of the presentation, I just mentioned that as a kind of the best practice. So I'll move on here a little bit. Kind of right. Well, yeah. I mean, how do we do this? Yeah. And then that's the whole thing here I have on the battery connections aspect. The one thing I mentioned was a battery current monitor. That's a new kind of onboard diagnostics it's like a basically it's a current sensor that it hugs the negative and positive. They even have them on both sides of the batteries now. I've seen that monitors the current for the onboard diagnostics and control modules. Then that's one aspect that I find if you were to place your harness for your radio in front of that, it could give it some crazy amperage value that's not typical or what the car wants to see. It'll add, the alternator will turn on. The alternator, by the way, those are dynamic too. Those constantly are charging or letting the battery rest. Just be aware that if you see that little ring lit around the battery cables, that's going to be your current monitor, and you don't want to really hook up really to that area there for sure. The one thing I've really tried to be more of a purist about is if it looks good, it is good with the installation process. By the way, this is kind of all the things in life is if it looks good and it's not just thrown across the engine bay or thrown across whatever, and if the wiring looks all nice and neat, I find that it prevents lots of issues from happening later on where things can rub through and become unsecured in some fashion. So very simple aspects on the battery aspects. I'm trying to say on how to create the battery connections.
What do you do about EV vehicles?
Well, you don't hook it up to the high voltage battery. You don't do that. Yeah, 300, 400 volts there. Yeah. As far as what do I do with them or what should you do? I mean, you should just, really, it's, yeah. The 12 volt battery is, well, all EVs still need to have a 12 volt battery system for most of the reference systems in the vehicle, and you just can't have everything running off the high power battery there. But it's no different than a standard internal combustion vehicle where you still utilize the same 12 volt battery. Let's see here. Here's a picture of a battery. Very simple setup. This is actually from a Chevrolet Express van. So this is like a model that hasn't changed literally in 25 years. Anybody remember the Chevy Astro vans? This is the next thing, the Express van. And you can see that we have, I'll just come around here. Very, very simple. There's not even a fuse block on top of these batteries, but just for the mere fact for the presentation, I see a lot of folks stacking up the terminals around, the battery here and, trying to get, jam as much as they can into the side post there. By the way, this is the battery current sensor, this little ringlet deal here. And, I've seen some interesting aftermarket LED lights people put on their cars tying into that. And it's not radio. It's not, not what we do here, but, anyways, I see a lot of folks tying into the actual battery post itself, but the best practice is not to get that connection too much resistance in that, because that's kind of, one leg goes off to your chassis, and then for the positive side, one leg goes off to your starter for the full cranking amps of the battery aspect. So if you were to utilize the actual ground lug to the chassis and connect from there, you take out the need to put to create any issues, I should say, with the actual battery terminals itself. So if you were to look for a nearest ground lug, that's kind of the better practice when connecting to ground. And for the positive side, which I think I have a picture of over here, the positive side, it's a little different because we have body positive voltage coming straight off the battery. This is a top view of a different vehicle where obviously we have like the hold down clamp here and then the top of the battery lug here. And then, mind you, this is viewing from the top down. This is your starter fuse, 350 amp fuse, and then there's multiple body positive circuits that run off the different harnesses. In this case, I would kind of sort of use this side of the body positive side. I wouldn't hook up right to the actual clamp down fastener because that will get worn out, and then once that's worn out, then you don't have a secure connection for your fuse or for your entire battery connection there. So I would utilize something like this. I would put a ring terminal there on this one, which this is a current monitoring circuit right here, a little 12 volt circuit there. But that's the thing we have to work with nowadays is lots of overcomplicated, or at least to our layman eyes, overcomplicated ways to do things. So that's the gist of it as far as the complicated aspects of what we have nowadays. You could, if you wanted to, go off of these, but now we have these proprietary circuit or these connectors here nowadays too. So it's a little bit hard to get a simple connection nowadays. But there are solutions. And that's everybody's vehicle is different. That's the whole idea. I'm trying to just keep it kind of general there. The purist in me wants to say use the firewall and go up and under your firewall, and you'll see a harness pass through and all these things. But I know a lot of us don't want to or have the time to do that kind of stuff. So there's other options out there for that. As far as you kind of do some out and around under the fender deals. I've seen that kind of throughout my years of being a ham, which is going out around the weather stripping under the fender and back into the engine bay. It works. It really works. I know some folks that do it. And that's the easiest option for most of us that want to do this. But the only problem with that is over time, especially if it's a driver's door, that's like the most used door in the car, So if you maybe use the passenger door if you want to go the other way around, if it's any difference to you. But having an access through the firewall, if it's possible, that's the best way to just find there's typically a pass-through grommet in the firewall with the body harness. That's, like I said, the best practice in what I would like to do. Then also, what I have done with my truck, I use the switched circuit off of the instrument panel fuse block. The instrument panel fuse block is like some of us may know back in the day where you'd get power to power other accessories in the vehicle. This is the same case right here where I just borrowed a 40 amp circuit that had a switch to power from the ignition switch. And so the battery, when there's no key, the circuit is off. So, and then I just ran my ground to the body.
Alex,
Yes.
I can attest to that. I've drained a couple batteries, sadly, till microvolts remained by leaving a rig on, and I directly hooked to the battery. I always have. I fuse both ends, but thank God for these rigs with auto power off.
Oh, indeed, and that's a great feature most new rigs have is the auto power off or the sleep function. Definitely set that up if you're installing your radio. I would do 10, 15 minutes, I think is fine. Most radios draw tenths of amps anyways, but definitely make sure your sleep or your turn off function is turned on in your radio in your vehicle. Just a quick little few pictures here of what to look for if you were to go the traditional route. I'll point out just, I guess, if it's right here. This is the grommet I'm talking about in a body harness, and this is that little like nipple looking deal where you'd cut a slit and then you'd run through that your accessory harness or your power harness or your coax, and that's what it's designed for. And most trucks have them. Not so much passenger vehicles, but you could probably do the same and modifying your passenger car body harness. Again, this is the more purest way to do it. Any installer you take your vehicle to get a radio installed, they're going to do it this way. Not the out and around deal. Hopefully not. So, anyways, and then from the bottom of the instrument panel, very general thing here. As you can see, there's not much space going on, and I think this is a Tahoe or that same express van I used that one day. This is the backside of that same grommet, like in the backside of the firewall. So you'd see you don't have much space to actually get up in there and flop around and cut a hole through that. So I definitely understand people's differences in their installations methods. To that effect, with the running power, obviously there has to be where you put your radio. And I find that DX Engineering has a very good selection of a great variety actually within that of all the different models for the mounts. within that, you have a few different variations, like the aftermarket kind of like the slotted mounts or slotted radio mounts. It's kind of all makes and models. I find that using those is definitely easiest because you have lots of options for angling. Because you'll be surprised. You'll get the radio installed, or you think you have the good idea for a radio installation, get it hooked up, and then all of a sudden it's cattywampus on the side or it's angled wrong. And so if you can, without having to drill things out all the time, find like a one-size-fits-all option, those really are great. Havas is a good supplier for those, and also Walcott. Also Lido, by the way, they offer a like a no holes, no drilling option for most of theirs. They have lots of like vehicle specific mounts, which are pretty neat to look into. So those three suppliers are pretty cool. Coax, it's power and it's coax. That's always the point. It's not just like installing a radio amplifier for that aspect for like audio purposes, but there are some options within coax. You have typically most of your vehicles are not going to have more than 20 feet. Need more than 20 feet of coax. It really depends, but if you could measure it, the best way to measure it is just use string, a length of string, and then you could go back, find your termination points, and then just measure that string, and that'll get you a great accurate measurement there. There is a type of coax called RG316. It's a very, very thin variety of coax. I think it's something like 1/8 of an inch. It's a very, very thin type of coax, and if you were to use or to go over your weather stripping in some fashion, say going out and around a window or a closed hatch, RG316 is a great option for that because it doesn't, obviously it's not like a big 1/4 inch thickness of coax. There are other things there too on the aspect of once you get it ran through wherever the coax runs out to. I have some things to show you. Let's see. I listed grommets. Grommets, I'm sure everybody knows they're just a standard circular rubber like washer that fits into sheet metal. But here is some butyl sealant, which is a great thing I have from the car business here. It's a best way to show this off here. It's a flexible material, just like coax seal basically, but in the business it's called butyl weather stripping. And you take any of this and you put it around any kind of weatherproofing spot, this stuff seals. I mean, it's basically waterproof to a degree of like probably a couple feet. I would say it's quite sticky stuff. But using that around your pass-through for the coax, if you were to go, say, like through the roof or through a trunk lid, putting that on the bottom side of that would be totally sealed. I mean, you have no worries at all. That's what I have on the truck too, on my back rack. Here's a picture of a coax assembly. Comet makes these. It's a fully wired coax assembly with the SO239 on there, and then also the flush mount on the bottom side there on the brass part. And you can use that for a roof mount, a trunk mount, lip mount even. And I would recommend going with one of these pre-made assemblies. I think they're like $25 typically. I mean, it's not really expensive. If anything happens to them, it's not very expensive at all compared to, say, using a run of LMR 400 for some reason, if you're crazy enough to use that for your vehicle. But anyways, yeah, it's a good option there. And Comet has all kinds of varieties of different N connector and all shapes and formats of assemblies. But I found that's the most economical coax assemblies there. Let's see here with the mounts on that note with the antenna mounts. Diamond Antenna makes a good variety of lip mounts. They make like luggage rack mounts, and having a few. They have a motorized one, which I think is pretty cool. If you're into running power to it, you can actually have it fold down. It's pretty neat. Comet, of course, and then Laird, which is more of a kind of more of an industry brand for police and emergency services. They make a great flush mount system for roof mounts or lid mounts or that kind of thing. And if you do go ahead down this road, it's not a bad deal. I mean, if you have to put a hole in your car for the intent that that's a permanent place for that antenna, and then for whatever reason, you can use the butyl on the bottom, sealing the bottom of the metal, and then use automotive body seam sealer. Question?
Yeah, Alex, this is not a very common mount, but I thought I'd bring it in. This is from Diamond, and it's for use on a non-metallic surface. Basically, I have a Ford Edge. The Ford Edge has a huge glass roof, half of which raises up and slides back, and so I have no metal up there. And I use Gorilla double-sided tape,
Yeah, Gorilla tape,
mount
yeah.
there on the glass in the back of the car. It holds really, really well until you run into a tree, and then it kind of comes
It's
off.
off. It's off.
And then, it being non-metallic glass, right? I use a half wave 2 meter, and then it's 2 5/8 for a UHF, band, and it works out very, very well. But anyway, that's a Diamond product, and this has worked, like I say, very well for me until I ran into the tree and it popped right off.
And here it is on the ground. Yeah. Well, very cool. Thank you much for sharing that. That's really cool. Yeah, I need to check back with Diamond. They've done some. I haven't checked out their catalog in quite some time, but that's new to me as far as that product. So, and by the way, if anybody knew, Diamond is a local company, or at least they have a warehouse here locally. They were just across the street, actually, here in Lawrenceville. I think they've moved out to Brazelton. But really cool to know that. I think it's their North America warehouse. I think it is. So kind of a neat little thing there. I was going to say, if you're going to mount the antenna, use automotive seam sealer, body seam sealer. It's a flexible type of like a silicone product. Which that could work too. But the thing with automotive body seam sealer is that it can withstand high temperatures and long-term, automotive environments, rather than just like a silicone of some sort, a caulking of anything. Because that caulking of the UV gets to that and it breaks down pretty quickly. But seam sealer is some good stuff.
Where is that available?
You can get that at any automotive parts store or Amazon even. Tubivit is go for the smaller tube if you will, because it's kind of expensive to the degree of what you'd be using it for, not like you'd use it all around the house kind of thing. But the smaller the tube, the better. But any place you can find automotive products. On that note, trim work and back into the vehicle. There are some options within that, and again, everybody's car is different. You can pull off panels. There's the tucking method. You could just tuck the cables underneath the panel, say like on the floorboards or the center console. There are some simple tools that I recommend anybody should have really in the garage. If you have a screwdriver, you should have some trim tools for your car because it's actually not too expensive. I found this is what I use at work a lot for pulling. It's called a door trim panel remover tool. I'm sorry, I should show you the one first. It's this black with the curved edge here, and it has a little slot in the middle. And like the one with the red handle there, it's just a smaller version of it. But this is great for, say, if you pull a trim panel up and it just kind of stops. There's typically a brass or a plastic clip behind that, and you need something like this to actually just get that little extra, clunk or clip out of whatever it's being held into. And it's a great tool. I find many uses for it just beyond the door panels, but even trim panels within around the radio area. And then what you see on the picture there with the blue pieces, some of those they're plastic trim tools. Idea of the plastic trim tools is, of course, not to scratch any of the nice shiny plastic we have in most of our vehicles nowadays. If you look at it wrong, it'll scratch. But so if you use the plastic trim tools, it'll be a lot more friendlier. But if you know what you're doing, and if you have confidence in what you're doing, you get a metallic trim tool like this with a very thin edge. And I've found that this now is like the new thing I use more so than the black-handled one here, because the thin edge of this is beautiful for Most center consoles nowadays are like this real thin, sharp, shiny plastic and like trim pieces everywhere. And if I were to just use something like this, it would gall it right up. And so this is another product. Both of these of which I found on Amazon for I think $7 and I think it was like $14. But I mean it's metal. It's like legit. It's not going to bend on you. But this tool here, it's my new jam. So really recommend that one. And that's great for just like around the vents or something like that. If you want to pop the vents out, you just use this and it slides right behind everything. And it's really good tool. And by the way, I was going to go back there on that last one. Trim work. Let's see here. If I go back too far, how do I go back? Back. There we go. Trim work. It's really, like I said, not too big of a deal. Obviously, as my points mentioned there, consider the age of the vehicle. Pulling trim work on a 20, 30-year-old vehicle is probably not the best thing to just start ripping out. Do it on a warm day if you're going to do that, because plastic, as we all may know, is sensitive to temperature. The warmer, the better, more flexible. Don't start doing trim work on a nice cold day. You're just going to snap the pieces. And I've done that before. I've at work, I've pulled a customer's car in, and I need to get a module out. I didn't let the car warm up. Open the doors in the shop there, and let the car warm up a little bit before snapping off the retainers. And so that's always a talk with the boss there. But anyways, on that note of talking and receiving, we have RFI. Now that we introduced a radio to a modern vehicle, lots of things are talking already in the car. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Tire pressure monitoring system is RF. We have wireless charging now, and all kinds of things now that emit and receive signals. And with our amateur radios in the vehicles now, which are another set of it's a receiver to the degree of it can hear things that get activated on their own within the car. Just need to be aware of that. It's something. I mentioned not even here now. Since I made this, there's more things like LiDAR in Cadillacs now. There's actually LiDAR to sense vehicles. Basically, in the earliest of days we're in for autonomous driving. It's quite strange to see some of these modules pop up, but there's LiDAR in the new Cadillacs coming out now for Super Cruise. You could drive hands-free and all these things. So anyways, lots of things to be picked up through having a radio in your vehicle to receive signals. So you might have to do some choking on coax or the power, and some basic points there. Really, if there's an issue, and go ahead, Scott.
Well, you mentioned about RFI from the receive side. What about when you go to transmit, screwing up the car's electronics?
Things can happen sometimes. Yeah. I can't say it's a one-size-fits-all thing, but right. Even with my Pontiac, when I would transmit on UHF, I would get some crazy little alert on my instrument panel, and it only would happen when I would transmit. So there are these things to be aware of now that everything is a transmitter and receiver, and by design, then you introduce a strong multiple watts of power to a vehicle, which typically should be sensing milliwatts of something. Things could change. Just be aware of what you're doing. And but with that, there's other things that I've seen, especially folks that run HF mobile, is to bond the tailpipe, being it's a very, very long insulated piece of metal on your vehicle. It has rubber hangers most times coming off of your engine block, and rubber hangers for vibration or mitigation for vibration. So that tailpipe, the exhaust pipe all the way back, could be potentially an antenna of some sort. So some folks bond they drill a hole in the tailpipe end and they bond it to the body. I've seen that done just to help mitigate some sort of RFI. And if you just don't know, you just feel like you have RFI, shotgun blast approach, just do whatever you can, put chokes on things, just get things quiet. That's a good option there too. I haven't really encountered much with my truck. I'll notice at idle a little bit of ignition noise. It's like a ticking, but I just know that's just the ignition system, the spark plugs and the ignition system firing, but not a big deal. So anyways, a little few pictures here coming up of some installations. This is Ray N4GYN over here in Buford, and he has a nice, really nice install of a. I think that's a. What is that now? He has the ICOM there. I think that's his wife's vehicle. Really nice, slick installation to the bottom of the center console there, where the cup holders kind of come out on the left there. And then in his vehicle, I think he has like a 2013 Buick LaCrosse or LeSabre, one of those. He had he did a top mount. It's the instrument panel, and then also has a external speaker there behind it, facing the windshield. So the sound's reflecting back to him, pointing up to the windshield. But a nice deal there with the remote head. He just ran things down nicely and tucked things up whenever he could. But real nice install there. This is Dave W3DJS. He has, or at the time he had a dually Silverado. I think he had, or no, he had a Dodge Ram, and this is a Yaesu FTM 400. Has the radio body under the seat, and ran power up through the center console there. Kind of easy. You can see kind of on the upper left there. A nice install, and then had double stick tape for the head. I think the head was a Lido mount. They had double stick tape on that. Kind of a nice deal there. Nice, it's just a nice little setup. And then Glenn, W3WWT. This is the trunk. The left-hand image is the trunk with the body, and then routed everything down through behind the back seats. And then it appears. What is this? What was this vehicle? This is a Audi A6, yeah, and really nice install and hiding the coax back through around the instrument panel there. And being you're here, do you have any comments on that installation by chance? Or just how you did it, or any tips or tricks?
I took it to a shop and paid $150 for the nice install.
Very nice, very nice. Well, they did a good job, you know. Yeah. So that's the whole deal there. Of it doesn't take much extra work there, honestly, to do it just to hide some cable and pull some things off a little bit, and it's not that big of a deal. But in that case, there you go. I didn't know that. So here are a few other antenna options. Let's see here. The middle picture is a trunk lid. The trunk is up. And that's actually N4GYN's XYL's car, and he actually has I'll show you this is the trunk lid mount, that the illustrious one. It has little set screws, and you can just just slide it onto the edge of the trunk mount. The trunk's kind of up, and you put the set screws there, and then route things down the trunk lid arms. Really nice setup there. And this is his Buick, where he has it coming out a lip mount out of the back of the hatch, and really nice install there. I think these are both diamond mounts, and then this is Dave W3DJS with the good old fashioned flush mount roof mount antenna, and it just there's a little base there. The antenna screws off. And Dave didn't know, but this particular antenna, the design has a spring-loaded kind of bearing in it, kind of thing. It tilts over, so you just pick it up, it's spring-loaded, and pick it up and plop it over just to make it not as tall. So those are options there, and that's the thing too. If you're new to radio, or if you're have a new antenna, parking garages will be the bane of you. So, anyways, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you.